Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Steve, thank you for that nice introduction and all the wonderful work that you and your commission does. Can't thank you enough. I want to begin by acknowledging the victim assistance professionals, the advocates and counselors, police officers, prosecutors, forensic nurses, hotline workers and trainers, and the many others who are on the front lines each and every day on behalf of the citizens of a very grateful state. I want to thank you for the incredibly selfless work that you do every day. I also wanted to acknowledge those of you joining us this morning who have shown tremendous strength of will and character to overcome and rebuild in the face of criminal victimization and personal tragedy. At one time, you were victims, but today you are no longer victims. Today you are survivors. Decades ago, victims were expected to stay on the sidelines of the criminal justice system. That is no longer true. Here in Maryland, we are working tirelessly to ensure that victims have the right to information, the right to be present, the right to provide input, the right to receive restitution, and perhaps most importantly, the expectation of being treated with the dignity and the respect that you deserve. Back in April, we hosted the first ever Governor's Statewide Victims Services Conference to recognize those who have contributed so much to the victims' rights movement here in Maryland, and to share ideas and resources among providers. Last spring, I was proud, as Steve mentioned, to sign into law the Justice Reinvestment Act, which serves to not only hold offenders accountable for their crimes, but also to hold government agencies responsible for administering justice and getting results. The vast majority of offenders are going to return to our communities, and it's our duty to ensure that the time they've spent in prison has helped prepare them to return as better neighbors and citizens so that we will have fewer victims. The Justice Reinvestment Act contains key provisions that strengthen victims' rights. To aid in restoration, we are withholding 25% of inmate earnings from those who are ordered to pay restitution. The law also requires an in-depth examination of our existing system of restitution. We must make certain that criminal offenders pay the victims back for the financial losses caused by the offender's actions. This legislation also requires that a portion of the savings achieved as a result of this legislation be designated specifically for victim services. Through these efforts, and because of the ongoing efforts of those of you in this room today, we are finally working towards a system of justice that restores a system of justice that validates victims' rights throughout the entire criminal justice process, and which makes their rights and their needs central to the process. Today, I am pleased to announce that we will be distributing $46 million to directly aid victims of crime. Through an increase in our allotment of the Federal Victims Crime Act, Victims Assistance Grants Program dollars, Maryland has a unique opportunity in the coming years to expand victim services across the state. Anticipating this influx of dollars, we commissioned a statewide victim needs assessment to determine gaps in services. The results were used as a tool in order to help guide funding decisions and will serve as a statewide strategy to reduce victimization across Maryland. The $46 million in addition to the more than $2 million that we announced last month for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, and the $250,000 in aid to abused and neglected children we had previously announced. We will fully fund each and every single request that we have received from service providers all across the state. That's pretty incredible. That one is worth clapping for. I couldn't believe it myself, but it's tremendous. Through these vital programs, we can help restore hope for victims and put them on the path toward healing and recovery. Right here at this incredible Center for Children, $176,000 new dollars will support comprehensive child abuse victim services. Just down the road at the Center for Abused Persons, they received over $500,000 to aid in their work serving victims. And Lifestyles of Maryland Foundation, right here, received $131,000 to provide services to survivors of domestic violence. And the support extends to organizations and programs all over the state of Maryland in every jurisdiction. In Prince George's County, $1.5 million will support the state's attorney's office in providing housing for victims of domestic violence. And I want to recognize Roberta Roper, who's in the back row. Everyone here knows her. There's so much great work she's done on behalf of victims. And the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, which was founded by Roberta after her daughter Stephanie's tragic death, will continue its legal and support services to the underserved populations in rural areas of the state. I want to thank you, Roberta, for all your many years. And we have delivered on our promise to aid victims of sexual assault and human trafficking in Baltimore City, just after the release of the Department of Justice report highlighting issues of concern associated with the treatment of sexual assault victims and human trafficking victims. We pledged to, at that point, as soon as the report came out, that we would devote at least $1 million to support these victims in Baltimore City. But today we are announcing instead that nearly $6 million will be dedicated to protecting the most vulnerable among us, to improve services for victims, and to provide our citizens with the most basic rights of safety and security. This investment will support a variety of services, including forensic interviewing for child victims, heightened responses to instances of sexual assault, training for law enforcement, and direct services for underserved populations. These are just a handful of the dozens and dozens of programs that we're proud to be funding all around the state, and this is just the beginning. To everyone here in this room today, and to crime victims all across our state, I want you to know that with our administration, you have a friend in the governor's office. You will continue to find an open door and a seat at the table and a tireless advocate that will be fighting on your behalf each and every day. I believe that with all of us continuing to work hard together, that we will continue to change Maryland for the better. So thank you all very much for joining us.